And here we are with horror artist Ricky Blalock. Welcome, Ricky.
Thank you.
All right, Ricky, how did you get into classic horror?
Since I was a kid, it's just about all I've done. For a long time, all I did was wildlife art, and then when The Walking Dead came, I decided to start drawing monsters and hadn't quit. So more monsters than I have animals, that's for sure.
Where'd you grow up, and what was your childhood like?
I grew up in Columbia, Tennessee, lived on a farm. We raised tobacco. After I got old enough to get a job, I was done with farming and went to art school after high school, then went to work for an engineering firm, worked there for 25 years, and now I work for a bank and I do artwork.
Were you influenced by Famous Monsters of Filmland growing up?
I think everybody was that's into monsters, that and Fangoria, Starlog.
Tell us about your first exposure to Famous Monsters of Filmland.
I was probably in about the first grade, and one of my cousins had a copy of it, and I saw one of Basil Gogos' covers, and I think it was the one that had Vincent Price from Theater of Blood on it, and that was my big thing after that.
So you mentioned Starlog and Fangoria. How did those magazines shape your geeky life?
I would just say reading those all the time and going to the movies, and you can look back on the stuff that I drew in the time period and see what movies were big at the time, and mainly just reading those and watching the movies.
Any particular favorites when it comes to classic horror?
The Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Why is that?
It's the greatest monster design ever.
So you're looking at more of an aesthetic of the design of the creature?
That and it's just, I mean, you can't beat it. I mean, it was the first great one, monster. I mean, other than Frankenstein, but as far as like a full body and everything, I mean, it just can't be beat.
I remember seeing that in 3D when they released it on television, made a big event of it in the 80s. What do you think about that era of the 50s making movies in 3D?
Some of it worked pretty good and some of it didn't, but I mean, you had to start somewhere, and it's evolved into it's really good now. Now, I saw a copy of it, of The Creature from the Black Lagoon. We rented it on VHS when I was in high school. It came with 4 pairs of glasses, and some scenes worked pretty good, some didn't, but as a whole, I thought it was pretty good.
Now, you have a wonderful relationship with Monster Magazine. Talk to us about that.
That magazine got started, well, we were talking about it several years ago, and at first, the guy that was putting it out thought it was kind of a bad idea, and then it kind of got drugged back up a couple of years ago, and we started putting them out, and I've been doing the covers for them since they've started. It's a small local magazine printed out of Columbia, distributed out of Columbia. Starting to get a little bit of a following. They're trying to get them distributed out to different comic shops if you can. But yeah, I've been in that from the beginning.
And I love it because it does have that feel of those retro magazines that you mentioned that influenced you.
Yes, it does. We wanted to try to get something that it's kid friendly, like, Famous Monsters used to be, and wanted it to be similar, but not, pretty much a copy, more like a homage to it. And it's working out pretty good.
Now, I've noticed we look at your work and you're not limited to the classic monsters. You actually do things like 60s Batman. You do Predator, Alien, Doctor Who.
And The Walking Dead. I've got a lot of Walking Dead stuff. I just don't have it out now. Pretty much anything that has to do with monsters and zombies.
Tell us about your original art and how you develop your unique style.
Well, it's practice. You're always evolving, and if you can look at some of my older stuff and then look at the newer stuff, you can tell it changes all the time. You're doing different things, trying different things, beginning to do a little bit of color. Used to do a lot of color when I did animals, but since I've moved away from animals and just did monsters, mainly we just focused on black and whites. But yeah, it just changes constantly. You see something that you like and do something different, or you try something to try to get, an effect you want to create. And so you just try that. If it works, it works. Sometimes, a lot of things do go into the trash can, while you're doing it. But it's just an evolving process.
What would you say the biggest trend is with regards to retro monsters? Do you see anything that are more interest in fans than others?
Well, I mean, it comes and goes. I know a lot of people like the Kolchak. And I guess
Kolchak the Night Stalker.
Night Stalker. I guess you consider we consider that classic as well.
Yeah.
But like weekend before last in Louisville, Kentucky, the big seller that I had up there was the Creature from the Black Lagoon. I sold a lot of the Creature from the Black Lagoon stuff. I do sell a lot of the 3 monster print that I've got here: the Frankenstein, Dracula, and the Wolfman. Usually the top 5 Universal monsters, your Frankenstein, your Dracula, your Wolfman, your Phantom of the Opera, and your Creature from the Black Lagoon, they all usually sell pretty good everywhere.
That's awesome. So tell our listeners where they could find your work and get in touch with probably subscribing to Monster Magazine.
You can look about Monster Magazine on VanceCapleyArt.com. Like I said, Kablam and Lulu. You can get me on Facebook and Twitter at The Pencil Art of Ricky Blalock. Usually Facebook and Twitter, you can find me pretty easy.
Awesome. Thanks for this interview, and thanks for this amazing work that you're offering us to see.
All right. Well, I do appreciate it, and thank you.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our Facebook group. Live long, and may the force be with you. Nanu Nanu.